It's early June, you're heading out to do some flounder fishing in a new spot, and no matter how much you look at maps and you talk to people and you think you have a really good plan, sometimes it's just not what you think it is, and sometimes you just have to pick your way through these little micro fish to find the really good spots in that area so that you can come out with just that one really nice fish for the day.
Well, that's ridiculous.
So this is a new area to me, and I met up with a buddy who's going out kayak fishing for his first time, so decided to try this area, and it just wasn't what I expected. In a little bit, I'm going to show you a view of the area using Navionics so you can see the contours on the bottom, and it just didn't pan out the way Navionics said it would. Now, the people that were there in the area, they knew because they had been out so far this year, but there was a lot of shifting sand over the winter. There's some localized dredging, which I think had some impact, but you can see we're just not getting the bottom structure that we were looking for, and it's a lot of hunting, you know, getting adrift and hunting for the contours on the bottom of the water and the structure to fish. And in the meantime, we're just going to be pulling in these little micro flounder, you know, that are just barely bigger than your hand, like this one here. I mean, they're aggressive, they go after it, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. And now we're still looking, you know, we're still looking for some structure. I'm using the fish finder very heavily at this point, and unfortunately things are just going to get worse before they get better, right? I mean, look at this guy. This thing is about as big as my palm, and it was foul hooked. So I was going after it, and somehow I just foul hooked this thing. But I mean, it's ridiculously small, but it's going to slowly get better, and then we're gonna get into a good fish coming up here in a moment. Now, by this time, we found what we think are a couple of spots, a couple of drifts that are going to take us over some decent structure. Now, it starts off with pretty small, ridiculous fish again. However, there's some promise here. So going right into the next fish, and they're going to get slightly better as we go, until we get to the point where we're pulling in something that is at least worth measuring. We still know it's short, but it's at least worth measuring to see what kind of class fish we're getting into. And you'll see coming up right here is going to be a 16¼ inch. So still about a couple inches below where it needs to be, but now we're getting into some of the normal size target fish. So we're going to really hit this area heavy, and you'll see coming up right after I dump this 16¼ in, I'm going to get into something that's a little bit better.
That's a big one. That's a big one. This is that hole, it's 16 feet.
All right, so while I'm measuring this, let's talk about this hole that's 16 feet. It shouldn't have been there, it shouldn't have been that depth. It was over a little, you know, by a few yards from where it was supposed to be on the Navionics. But yeah, that's where we found some structure that wasn't necessarily on the maps or on the charts, and we just started working it heavy, and this is what we pulled out. Now I want to point out, because I'm going to hear it from a lot of people, I am measuring this with the boga grip in its mouth. I know that extends the length of the fish, but this is a keeper size, so I'm not really concerned about it. I'm going to remeasure it later. It's going to come in at 23.75 inches. So now let's do a 1-minute spot breakdown so you can see exactly where we were fishing. So here's what Navionics looked like, and it didn't turn out this way. You can see this really severe drop off here right along the sod bank, where it starts up shallow and it gets down to around 12 feet, 14 feet. See some holes over here. Now I can't hit these holes over here because that's right in the middle of a major channel, so not safe to be out there, especially on a weekend. So we were going to fish this drop off here, but it turned out to not be the drop off that we expected. instead of having this real severe drop off and then having it flatten out over here, it actually was a drop off down to 16 feet up in this area up here where it shows around 3, and around 20 feet down here, and it was like a little valley. So it was like a slough going through there. And once we found this area, we just kind of worked it back and forth, and that's where we ended up pulling out that 23.75 inch that I called the 24 incher, right in this section right here. And as always, a drop off and structure on the bottom produces the fish. Now I wanted to put this one in just because it shows something a little bit different, which is not all that rare when you're fishing New Jersey in the spring.
Yeah.
We hit a channel, a very small, narrow 10-foot channel that ran between some sod banks, and just jigging for flounder and end up hooking into a striped bass. So this one is not overly big. I was going to net it. It's going to come in probably around 26, 27 inches. 28 to 36 is the keeper size in New Jersey. And regardless, I'm not interested in keeping it. I want to make sure that I return it, so I'm going to just try to lip it. Got to be really careful because that bucktail has a razor sharp hook on it, brand new out of Hearst Tackle, and he gives you sharp hooks. So I'm going to pull it up, grab the leader, get the touch on the leader at least, and see if I can lip this thing. And as you can see, the leader has been beat up from a day of fluking and catching a lot of fish and dogfish and skates as well, and it ends up breaking off the leader right here. So hopefully that hook comes out quickly for it. Hopefully it swims away safely and is able to survive. But typical spring fishing.
Broke off.
So as we all know, the best laid plans don't always work out, but if you want to turn that garbage into gold while you're out on the water, you have to be willing to move and adapt to the situation and find that structure for these flounder. In this case, it worked out well. If you made it this far, please hit that subscribe. Appreciate a like and a comment. And popping up on the screen, I have a playlist which has more instructional videos on catching flounder. And I hope to see you over in the next video.